What is the worst thing you have ever witnessed another person do? One day, a few hours after school, I saw a freshman pick up a syringe from the ground near a trash can, then run over to one of his friends and stabbed him in the leg with it as a joke. After the kid who got stabbed and others in their group started freaking out, the kid who did the stabbing just sat there playing off like it was a great joke and kept calling the other kid a pussy because it wouldn't hurt that bad. I know people rag on how dumb kids are nowadays, but this moron didn't understand why everyone was losing their shit after stabbing someone with what is almost certainly a used syringe. Holy shit, did the guy ever understand the gravity of the situation? Or should I be worried that there's some idiot out there who thinks sticking people with used hypodermic needles is a hilarious prank? To my knowledge, he was an extremely spoiled and baby little shit, so I doubt he could really comprehend the severity of his actions. I didn't know him on a personal level, but the group of kids he hung out with all thought they were gangsters and thugs despite being extremely wealthy white kids. School shooting. Some asshole went in our school bathroom. He's rotting away in a jail in the desert for the rest of his life, though, so that's nice. Hey, another Santana High School alumni. I was in 06, so no. I was at Hill Creek when it happened, though, and remember everything being locked down. I figured you were talking about Santana, just knowing the bathroom being the place it started, and mostly because you used the word quad. Sometimes it scares me to think this almost happened to my high school. Dude showed up with a couple of shotguns and body armor under a big trench coat. Fortunately, he had bragged to a bunch of people beforehand, and security took him down the moment he stepped on campus. I hope you're doing all right. Can't imagine actually going through something like that. When I was 17, I did charity work, feeding the homeless. Sometimes hung out with a slightly crazy older kid who lived a few doors down. One day he said, "Come check this out." So I followed him on my bike down to an overgrown riverbank near where we lived. He'd found a hibernating hedgehog, but the moment he pulled out his penknife, I realized it wasn't the hedgehog itself that he wanted to show me. He proceeded to stab the sleeping animal multiple times. I have no idea why he did it. I was left numb. Come to think of it, I don't think I've ever mentioned this to anyone before. I watched a kid string up a mouse on this thing with 4 clamps and a magnifying glass in the middle. He placed a limb in each clamp. He cut that fucking mouse open, split it right down the middle. The way it caved in was absolutely disgusting, as I was no longer one with the socket. Got a call for a patient being stuck in a compromising position. A teenager was fooling around with her dog, and he nodded in her and became stuck. Family found her and called 911. We get there and have to put her and the dog on the stretcher to take them out to the ambulance. We had the firefighters hold up blankets around the duo to try to protect what's left of her modesty. Her dad was yelling at her, calling her a whore /skank/slut ECT. She replied that her dog was the only guy who understood and cared for her, and he, the dad, would never understand. It was a very fucked up call. You should have just blasted them with a garden hose. Works every time. I used to work in a UK post office. A very old lady I knew well came in to get her pension money for the week, about 60 pounds. She was very slow and would often take her money to the shelf on the other side of the post office to put her money away and check her bills, etc., which she also paid at the time she got her pension. Right after serving her, I served an affluent-looking couple who renewed the road tax on their 4 cars, one of which was a vintage Ferrari. Other 3 were Mercedes/BMW. They paid in cash, a total of well over 400 pounds. The guy still had loads in his wallet. As they left through the otherwise empty post office, and clearly not thinking I could see them from the angle I was standing at, they walked past the old lady who was sorting her change/bills just as she dropped to 20 pounds. The old lady clearly hadn't noticed, as she hadn't reacted and wasn't looking at her money. I saw the couple both look at it on the ground, quickly look at each other, then the man bent down, pocketed the 20, and they both rushed out the shop, clearly aware of what they had done. I raced out of the shop and thankfully caught them. Gave them the greatest verbal bull-locking I have ever issued in my life, and got the old lady's money back to her, despite seeing some pretty horrible things in my life. This display of utterly vile greed sticks in my head as the worst thing I've ever seen someone do. Edit, just woken up and pretty stumped by this response. Thank you all so much for the kind words, and particularly the gold whichever one of you that was. Oddly nice to know that if this hit a nerve with so many of you. People like the greedy bastards I talked about above will need to watch out, as none of us are going to put up with their nonsense. When I was around 7 years old, I loved animals. I wanted to be a vet, and I wanted to take care of anything I could. So you can imagine how my head exploded when I saw a cute possum mother and its babies. Well, apparently an old man who lived down the street didn't like that the possums were hanging out on the road so early in the morning. My mom and I watched as the man picked up all of the possums, there were probably about 8, and threw them into a garbage bag. Then he tied up the bag, threw it on the ground, and stomped the possums to death. It was really traumatizing to see. DR watched someone stomp baby possums and their mother to death. Had a guy pull in front of me and hit his brakes as hard as he could. I rear-ended him. He was a dick to me, the cops, and my insurance, even though there was no damage to his car. He also went to the emergency room. We found out he's had 91 insurance claims. This probably pales in comparison to other people's. But while I'd heard about people like this who commit insurance fraud for a living, I didn't know they actually existed. My grandfather and I were in his backyard. He was doing yard work, and I was just being a kid wandering around. He called me over saying, "Do you want to see some baby mice?" I ran over and looked into the hole he stood next to and saw 6 to 8 baby mice. I looked up at my grandfather and said, "Why are they jerking like that?" He replied, "I stomped on them so they won't go in the house." Why the fuck did he call me over to see baby mice in their death throes? "Hey kiddo, want to see some mice?" "Sure, grandpa." I stomped the shit out of them, champ. I once found a nest of baby mice and excitedly showed it to my dad. He then scooped them up and without saying a word tossed them to the chickens. They gobbled them up and I was horrified. One day at church, I saw a parent spill their son's Cheerios, and instead of picking them up, they set their son on the floor to eat them off the ground. I laughed, but still, a man masturbating his own dog until it comes, so it won't be so aggressive for the next few days. The dog's legs were probably broken. People do this with show dogs fairly often, right before they go out for show. It calms them down and helps with concentration, apparently. Not me, but a former friend of mine told me many times how he watched his best friend get shot by a sniper in Bosnia while crossing the street to buy smokes. He mentioned how he was shot by a sniper in Bosnia, a lucky wound just in his arm, showed me the scar, then broke down. He was devastated by the fact it was a woman who shot him. And what happened to the mother who had shot him? His squad mate held the glass up to him so he could watch the aftermath of the artillery, and he got more of a show than he bargained for. I had no idea what to say or do, and he apologized a few minutes later, took another beer, and left. I felt really bad, but had no idea what to do. The guy was arrested not so long after for a massive overreaction to some situation when someone threatened him. That was the last I heard of him. When I was 15, we were playing football in my front yard, when we heard screaming from the woods that lined the yard. All of a sudden, the little kid that lived behind me came running fully engulfed in flames. Everybody else panicked and ran away. I took off my coat and put him out. A neighbor of mine invited me over for drinks. I brought over a bottle, had a cocktail, and went home to have dinner with my husband. I came back after dinner, and she was blackout drunk. I had to get her to bed. Her husband was away for the week, and then get her 3 kids ready and settled in a bed. Her youngest was 5 and said she wasn't used to anyone reading her a bedtime story. Edit, I'm in my early 20s, so I was not prepared to get 3 kids between 12 and 5 to bed on a school night. Edit 2, I just want to say I knew that she drank frequently, just not to what extent. I was about 21 at the time and didn't think she had a problem until that night, and her kids confirmed that it happened often. This just gives me a sad and makes me want to go and wake my daughter so I can read something to her. Violet, HRGM. Violet, sweetie, wake up. Daddy, I just wanted to let you know I loved you. Chapter 1. He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. In the first 40 days, a boy had been with him. But after 40 days without a fish, the boy's parents had told him that the old man was now definitely and finally Soleo, which is the worst form of unlucky, and the boy had gone at their orders in another boat, which caught 3 good fish, the first week. Dad, I'm 29, I live halfway across the country, and is that Old Man and the Sea? Yes, that is a very strange book to read as a bedtime story. But it's Hemingway. Okay, keep going. It made the boys sad to see the old man come in each day with his skiff empty, and he always went down to help him carry either the coiled lines or the gaff and harpoon and the sail that was furled around the mast. 2005 Southern Baghdad. Mahdi army fighters tied a screaming boy by his legs to the back of a car bumper and just drove off. Blood and pieces of flesh were strewn throughout the street for a few blocks. People were cheering. Oh, fucking Mahdi militia. I got stories about those assholes. In 2004, the U.S. Army essentially put a hit out on al-Assad. We went to Najaf in the summer of 2004 to hunt these people. Our ROE was to shoot anyone wearing black and green. So I mean hunt in the most literal sense of the word. It was open season on those assholes. They would set up fake police checkpoints and just murder the people coming through. This was during the time of some holy pilgrimage to a mosque in Najaf. So it was a lot of fucking people getting caught in this crap. God, that place was a nightmare. It was so hot our vehicles would sink into the pavement of the roads like they were made out of Play-Doh. My grandmom screaming at my mom on my birthday for not being able to do house chores while my mom had a severe autoimmune disease. She couldn't walk around for more than maybe 10 minutes. Had neuropathy, numb extremities, and couldn't eat more than 5 different foods at that time. Probably get buried, but went to a beach house party for my friend's birthday. She rented a pretty nice one with 6 bedrooms and just tons of space. We were around 19 or 20 and had a shitload of alcohol, so we planned for a lot of people. As it happens, there were more than a few people we didn't know, but the more the merrier, or so we thought. After a while, we noticed some girl brought her really young sister there, like 13. We weren't doing crazy stuff. At the most, people were smoking weed on the beach, so we didn't think nothing of it. I was one of the host type PPL, so I had to make sure the house didn't go to shit. Only reason I noticed is because she was on the couch playing Pokemon till her sister gave her Jello shots, then left her while she went with some dude somewhere. It was an old Game Boy Color. Pokemon Blue. I had red, so I was being nice. Eventually, I wanted to chat up some hot chick, and went to the beach. This was still early around 11. I get back at around 12:30, and there's not many people still inside. Mostly everyone is at the beach. I start cleaning a little, then hear muffled grunts coming from one of the rooms. First, I was like, whatever. Someone's getting laid. Then I heard a real distinctive no-oh. I bust open the door, and 3 dudes are pretty much raping this little girl. I grab the first thing I see, a half-empty beer, and smash it on the first guy's head. I wish I could say I kicked all their asses, but they fought back, and I held my own for a little but took a few good punches. Got tackled into a wall, cracked 2 ribs. My friends eventually heard it all and helped. I did knock the first guy out, and the other 2 got pretty fucked up eventually. We called the cops. Apparently, they put some Xanax in her drink, and with the alcohol, made her helpless. The sister came eventually and cried, but nothing she could do either. The younger girl had her stomach pumped and really didn't remember anything. It was a pretty fucked up situation. Edit. Most karma I've ever gotten. Thanks, but I don't deserve it, nor the gold. I'm definitely no hero. I just did what anyone would do in that situation. Just to answer a few questions. She's fine. She's 21 now and doesn't remember it. She's in college and all in all a really good kid. I know people said they'd kill them if they were in that situation. Shit was a blur. I was trying to protect her and killing didn't even come to mind. I knocked one out, fought the other 2 till my friends came and we beat their ass. I was still standing at the end and they weren't. They did go to jail. As far as I know, 2 are still in prison and 1 got released then deported last year. I don't know if it made the news or not. I really don't remember. I know her mom didn't want anyone to know, so nobody would talk about her in high school. I think that would have been worse. As for the sister, she's never gotten over it. I can't explain more, but she regrets it more than anyone can. Thanks again. Iota was 14, riding the bus home from Cole, sitting in the back. I noticed that kid hanging over the back of H's seat, taunting a younger kid who was obviously upset about it. I was thinking about stepping in, but frighted a little girl sitting in Tichi, and Nexi got up and punched Tichi, a kid, in the face. She sat back, WN, like nothing happened. My dad's ex-wife has a lot of mental issues. She does some crazy things because of it, and for whatever reason, my dad would just go along with her bad set ideas when they were married. When I was around 10 or so, we went on a trip to a resort. My former stepmom and my sister, who is a year older than me, got into it over something I'm sure it was really, really stupid. The next thing I know, my dad is pinning my sister down so his wife can hit and punch her. My step-siblings, who were toddlers at the time, were right there, and I'm trying to keep them from seeing it. But I was afraid I'd get in trouble too if I tried to leave, so I just piled us into a corner. I had many WTF moments after that. I've had to explain to a 4-year-old why his mom is passed out on the kitchen floor. I've had to explain to police that I was not cooking meth in my bedroom on my flat iron. Growing up was crazy shit. What my dad did to his own child definitely takes the cake as most fucked up thing I've seen a person do though. I saw 2 guys fight in a field when I was in high school. A classic 1 versus 1 with no one jumping in. One of the guys lands heavy punch and knocks the other guy out. The winner is walking away toward his buddies, hands up, talking about how awesome he is. Out of nowhere, one of his friends runs past him and jumps into the air over the unconscious guy, lifts his knees against his chest, and comes down with both feet onto the guy's face. Edit, afterward. After he landed on the guy's face, he just slowly backed away. For the most part, everyone was just in shock. A lot of people just turned around and quickly went back to the parking lot, probably scared of what was going to happen next. The guy who knocked him out just yelled, "What the fuck did you do that for? You fucking animal," and started laughing. His other buddies started laughing as well and calling him crazy and badass, saying, "This dude don't give a fuck." And the guy seemed to be in his glory as they walked away, leaving the guy on the ground. We called an ambulance and stayed with the guy until they came. He didn't wake up while we were there. He just made a lot of gurgling and heavy breathing noises. The police came as well and were more interested in what started the fight and basically took our names and said we might hear from him if the guy presses charges. A friend of mine was a high school teacher and a girls' basketball coach. One girl was upset about her lack of playing time, so she and her mother came up with a plan to get my friend fired. They accused him of raping the girl. The police arrested my friend, tossed him in jail. This was on a Thursday night. He had to spend Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in jail. He got arraigned. His name was splashed across every paper in the state. By Wednesday, police punched enough holes in their bullshit story to drop charges and release my friend. The school fired him anyhow. Not a single thing happened to the girl or her mother. I once saw a teenage girl urinating on a pregnancy in the middle of the day in an alleyway. Alternatively, I saw a man punch a 5-year-old child in the face. I was in a roller coaster accident at Six Flags in 2001. My girlfriend and I waiting to get on the front row of the Batman ride. After dropping out of the first loop, my girlfriend's leg slammed a guy in the back of the head. An employee had snuck into the area underneath the coaster in order to kill himself. When her leg hit the back of his head, I heard audible cracking and blood splat all over us and the stark white rocks below. That was the beginning of the ride, so we had to reflect and look back at the body on the ground. I was 14. This will probably be buried, but anyway, Opie might like to hear it. New Year's Day about 5 years ago, I was driving through the city with my parents when I saw a guy getting beaten up on the side of the road. He was on the ground defenseless, getting kicked. A pool of blood was evident on the ground, and the attacker showed no signs of stopping. The sickening thing is that 15 to 20 cars drove past and didn't do anything. The cars were moving at a snail's pace and could easily see what was happening. That's the worst thing I've seen a human do to another. Not stand up for someone who could easily have been killed by a loose kick. If anyone is wondering, my dad stopped the car and broke up the fight after calling the cops, and it really made me try from that moment on to help others in danger. TLDR, my dad gave me a hero complex edit. Guys, the hero complex line was a joke. And I live in Ireland, so the chances of someone carrying a gun are so slim that it is negligible. Someone drove a car into my girlfriend. Luckily, it only broke her foot, but that was not a nice thing to happen. Edit, she's still my girlfriend, and no, I did not do it. It was a very upsetting thing to happen, guys. Be an informant. When I was deployed, we had an informant. We called Shakes because he would come to us shaking. He supplied to us information regarding insurgent activity, names, and locations. The stress of it all really ate at him, giving him the shakes, and a lot of wrinkles. He was maybe late 30s. Smoked constantly. He said he was doing it for his family, wife, and son. After a week or two, shakes stopped coming. We learned he and his family had been executed for helping us. This was late 2004. I don't have proof. A while back, I was at the train station, and there was this old homeless man begging for some food. Some people who worked at the snack bar closely were throwing fries at the floor, so he would eat it. I wanted to buy the guy some fries, a burger, and a drink, but they told I wasn't allowed to give it to him. When I said fine, I'll get him good somewhere else. One of the guys actually followed me and tried to physically stop from buying food for a homeless person. He used to work at a scam debt management company. A manager charged $10K to an old lady's credit card with Alzheimer's because she will never have to pay it. Needless to say, the company was raided by the feds, and Guy was brought up on charges along with the owner and others. This was 10 years ago. Edit. Wasn't expecting this feedback. It was actually 8 years ago. I was young and was looking for a job making more money than working at 7-Eleven. When you go to a place like this, it appears as legit as any other place. It's what goes on behind closed doors where the shady shit is. Nobody comes out and tells their employees they are con artists exploiting the credit system. They would charge about $1,000 to your credit card for enrolling and tell you they would negotiate lower interest rates. In the end, the company had no established agreements or fair share from the banks, so the negotiation process was no different than you calling your credit card company and beg for a lower rate. Essentially, they would give you a piece of paper showing a rollover payment plan and say, this is what we guaranteed to show you how to get out of debt. Thanks for the $1,000 on top of the outstanding debt you already have. These companies are complete shit and have almost entirely all gone out of business. The particular place I worked at went over the top, and I was part of a group of people who blew the whistle. Since then, I have worked in the industry and have helped make strides to change the way consumers and banks interact on hardship programs. The difference is legitimate debt management companies have a non-profit status and make sure to have all the proper accreditation and don't charge upfront fees. This allows them to have established guidelines directly with the banks, so each client actually knows what the terms are before signing anything. The company gets funding directly from the banks because it creates a win-win situation, and the client doesn't have to pay $1,000 upfront to have fair interest rates and terms. These programs typically don't hurt your credit since you never stop making payments and never settle for less money owed. You simply lower your risk to the banks by setting up a payment plan through an established agency. And getting out of debt quicker is more beneficial than having an open credit card when you're drowning in debt with high rates and limited income. I watched a gangster-looking guy trip an inmate on purpose, which ended up spilling his lunch everywhere. He got up looking utterly devastated because they wouldn't serve him another lunch. And he just started sobbing while a table full of guys laughed at him. He picked up what he could salvage and scooped it back onto his tray and ate in a corner. That was the first time I really felt sorry for someone. You could tell that he wasn't fitting in with anyone and got treated like that constantly. Edit. Holy hell. I didn't expect this to get this big. I was in a rather large county jail system, and this type of thing was what got me. There was this guy in the tank that would get beat up at random. He wouldn't fight back and would act really weird after a beating. Like he would do push-ups while crying or shadow box in a corner while talking to himself. I kept thinking, dude, throw one punch and it will stop. Never happened. He got transferred after so many visits to the nurse. Christ, imagine witnessing that at the age of 6. What happened with your neighbors? Well, we lived in family housing on a college campus. So the dog killer went to jail. Got him and his entire family, wife and 4 kids, kicked out. And from what my mom told me when I was around 12, he also lost his entire tuition and got kicked out of college. Holy shit. Did the guy ever understand the gravity of the situation? Or should I be worried that there's some idiot out there who thinks sticking people with used hypodermic needles is a hilarious prank? To my knowledge, he was an extremely spoiled and baby little shit, so I doubt he could really comprehend the severity of his actions. I didn't know him on a personal level, but the group of kids he hung out with all thought they were gangsters and thugs despite being extremely wealthy white kids. I watched a kid string up a mouse on this thing with 4 clamps and a magnifying glass in the middle. He placed a limb in each clamp. He cut that fucking mouse open, split it right down the middle. It was alive for a moment. Not sure why we didn't do anything. I was just horrified, really. I once found a nest of baby mice and excitedly showed it to my dad. He then scooped them up and without saying a word tossed them to the chickens. They gobbled them up and I was horrified. Chickens are basically tiny modern dinosaurs. I sometimes wonder what they keep in the little red bag under their chins. Man, I fucking hatar chickens. I've been in the Caribbean for the past month and a bit, and there's chickens fucking everywhere. Close your eyes, turn on the spot a couple of times, open eyes. Boom, chicken in sight. Guarantee it. Fucking bullshit. And all they do here is cluck constantly, 24/7. Anyway, I want to know what's in their chin bag of secrets. How many dogs died in their presence to make a habit out of it? I think I saw a total of 2 dogs in their trash before we moved out of the neighborhood. But I have no idea of knowing how many they have done that to. I should also mention that these 2 times I saw this were 5 or so years apart. So it wasn't like there was a dead dog in their trash every month. That just seems so wrong. Up until recently, I lived in an apartment without a yard, and I often wondered what I would do should my dog die in such a situation. I would drive my ass back 3 hours to my hometown with the body and bury the dog there with dignity. Not throw the poor girl in the trash. Hell, I tried to save an injured dove a few months ago. She didn't make it long after I found her, and I buried her in the alley. I grew up on a farm. I've killed pigs, cows, chickens, turkeys, deer, etc. But my dad taught me to do so with respect. Animals are not trash. It's sad to think of where they would have ended up in life. But they ended up everywhere. Jesus, glad you made it out alive. How close were you? I was probably 50 yards away inside a compound. It was actually the day before our 6-month-long daily mission of protecting that official started. We drove out there to check out the area for the next day. Failed before we even started. And that comment about ending up everywhere. Call me sick and disturbed, but that's about the only thing that made me laugh today. I hope that teacher faced some serious consequences. And really, what kind of school leaves a bottle of sodium for students to access should honestly have better safety standards. She got fired for that and other issues. Never wore deodorant. Issued detention slips for no reason. Was generally regarded as creepy. She was a female basement dweller, complete with double carpal tunnel gloves and a lisp.